At San Diego Comic-Con, Kevin Feige said we will be seeing mutants inside of the MCU. So today we're gonna do something fun. I'm gonna offer my fan cast for the X-Men inside of the MCU. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place to consider clicking that subscribe button. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your dream cast for the X-Men inside of the MCU. And if you didn't know, I already did a video where I did my fan cast for the Fantastic Four in the MCU. You can check that out at the playlist right up there. A few things before we get started. First off, the X-Men have a massive roster, so for this video, I picked 7 X-Men plus Magneto. If the video does well enough, we might just get a volume 2. Second thing, I wanted to pick X-Men that were kind of the established team who we see in action. So I was kind of looking for a 30-ish age range for the main cast that I'm looking to cast for this specific video, not kind of that younger generation of current students at Xavier School. Third thing, I was looking for people that were an actual possibility to play these roles. So if they're already a memorable character inside of the MCU, they were off limits and I didn't consider them for this video. With that said, let's get started with Magneto. So for Magneto, I was looking for someone that you of course can believe is menacing, that you can believe is intelligent, that is intimidating, but at the same time is a character that you can have sympathy for. So my runner-up on this one, I actually went with Arnold Vosloo. This is the guy that played the Mummy back 20 years ago. He's been in a bunch of different things over the years. He's very easy to see as the menacing villain in a role like this, but also if you've seen a lot of these films that he's done, he has a sympathetic side to him where you can see the sadness inside of him. So I think there's potential there for him to do a pretty good job. But my pick for Magneto would be Sean Bean. This is an actor who's been around for a very long time, has had a lot of big major roles where he's played heroes, where he's played villains, where he has died a whole lot of times, but you can totally believe him as the bad guy, as this guy with this dark side, but also someone that is well-intentioned even when they have nefarious motives with certain sorts of things that they do. So I think he's someone that could be very powerful in this role. Next up, we're looking at Professor X. For this one, I'm looking for someone that you believe is very caring, nurturing, the mentor, but also someone that can step into the action and be the hero when they need to be. Now, the person that I thought was absolutely perfect, there'd be a little bit of an outside-the-box pick, but in other ways, not outside the box at all, would be perfect for this role, would be Laurence Fishburne. But they kind of wasted Laurence Fishburne on like a small side character in Ant-Man and the Wasp. But if you think about it as like a strong mentor character that you can buy, is intelligent, that cares for people, that uses his mind to do things, Morpheus. Perfect for that sort of thing. But my runner-up for this one is going to be Bryan Cranston. Whenever I do these fan casts, he's one of these actors I always immediately go to because he's so versatile. He can be the villain or he can be the mentor. He can play both sides of this, and he hasn't been picked up by one of these major comic book movie franchises yet, so he's like a top player that should be in the game, so I always go straight to him, and I think very easily it's easy to see him as the strong mentor in a role like this. You can of course buy him as very intelligent or as the person that needs to step into action and be strong. So I think he could be a very solid option here. And also to throw something interesting into the mix, if we were to do another outside the box kind of option for Magneto, you go with Giancarlo Esposito, the Chicken Man from Breaking Bad, and you could have some very cool kind of Breaking Bad reunion with the little frenemy situation with Magneto and Professor X inside of it. That could be very cool. But my actual pick for Chucky X is going to be Terry O'Quinn. You might know him better as John Locke from the TV show Lost. He's played in a ton of things over the last 30 or 35 years. He's very good at playing these respectable roles, and especially if you've seen the show Lost, he plays a wise mentor on that show that has to go into action. He's guiding a lot of people, and he's a very complex character, so it's very easy to see how he would be able to pull off a character with the specific attributes of Charles Xavier. Then we've got Cyclops and Jean Grey. For these two, I decided to cast them together because they are a couple. They functionally have a similar role inside of the X-Men. And so I wanted to look at two people that were age appropriate, that would have the right chemistry and balance for one another. While I'm looking at them, I'm looking for the leaders of the X-Men team. That person is kind of, with Cyclops, is a bit more serious than some of the other X-Men inside the mix. Likewise, Jean Grey has a similar role as that leader inside of the team. So my runner-up on this one was going to be Jensen, Ackles, and Stana Katic. If you don't know who they are, Jensen Ackles is one of the two brothers on Supernatural. You can definitely see him as being kind of a strong personality to lead a team. He's got the leading man good looks. He can pull off the physicality inside of it. Stana Katic was the female lead on the show Castle. Likewise, you can buy her as someone that can kind of give commands, leading people, take charge inside of a situation. Another pair I was considering was Jamie Bell with Evan Rachel Wood, except they used to be married, so probably not the best idea to pair them up in a franchise like this. So instead I went with Armie Hammer with Evan Rachel Wood. Armie Hammer is one of these actors that they've been trying to find the right big franchise for him for about a decade now. I mean, he was cast as Batman in a Justice League movie 10 years ago, and so they've had him as the Lone Ranger. They tried to do Man from U.N.C.L.E. There have been so many rumors about him being cast inside of the DCEU. If the DCEU doesn't want him, hey, let's make him Cyclops inside of the X-Men. It's very easy to see him once again as the guy taking charge of a team, as a leading man with charisma that would kind of make more of an impact than the James Marsden version did. And then Evan Rachel Wood, if you've seen the show Westworld, she absolutely takes charge. She leads a rebellion. She's got the acting chops. You can buy her as kind of a sympathetic character. You can buy, which kind of with the dark Phoenix type stuff that they could do with the character. If you need to go the dark direction, the sadness to the side, she's absolutely got that, but she's also the revolutionary on that show that kind of leads a rebellion. So you can buy all the different aspects. You put the two of them together, I think you have a formidable pair leading our X-Men. Now let's look at Rogue. For the Bryan Singer films, they kind of changed up the Rogue character, gave her the origin story of Jubilee from X-Men the Animated Series a little bit, made her this point of view character that we followed her as she kind of went into this world of mutants and the X-Men. We saw things from her perspective. That's not what I'm going to look to do. I'm looking for established Rogue, strong character, prominent member of the X-Men team. I'm going to go with Alexandra Daddario. If you've seen her, she of course has the acting chops. She kind of has a spark, a personality to her. I'm not sure she can do accents, so she can do that Southern Belle accent. Hopefully she can. If you've seen a movie where she's done that, let me know about that. That would help me with my fan casting here. But I think she's got the look. I think she's got the screen presence to be the hero. She seems like another one of these actresses that hasn't quite gotten her break in the movies yet. I mean, they cast her in Baywatch, but that movie kind of drowned at the box office. So this could be her opportunity to really launch into stardom, I think. Next up is Iceman. For Iceman, I'm looking for kind of the everyman of the team. When we get to Wolverine, we got the angry rage monster. With Cyclops and Jean Grey, you have the leaders in the mix. Rogue has a little bit of attitude to her. Who's the nice everyman on the team? So I'm going to go with Jack Quaid. If you've watched The Boys, that's essentially who he is in The Boys. He's the everyman that gets swept up on this adventure of trying to take out the superheroes. He's got a very innocent likability to him, but at the same time, when he has to step in and do not necessarily heroic things, but when it is to step into action, you buy him inside of those roles. I've only seen him on The Boys, and immediately I went, I want to see this guy in more things. So as I went to kind of create this list, he was one of those names I wrote down as like, who's someone that fits? And I kept going back to Iceman as him kind of being the everyman of the team, and that's where he fits for me. Next up is Colossus. On this one, I'll just cut straight to the chase. I'm going with Florian Big Nasty Montaneo. If you don't know who he is a Romanian boxer, and then he played Victor Drago in Creed 2, Ivan Drago's son. Now with him, you're not looking for him to like carry the dramatic weight of the film. He's not going to be a big acting presence. He's not the lead of the team. He's just kind of a presence inside of the film as Colossus that can kind of play little moments. That's what they used him for in Creed 2, where he had to be in a very serious film as someone that is a boxer by trade, not an actor by trade, and he did a really good job in that role playing what he was supposed to do. So if you use him right, he can be that proper presence on screen as kind of the Colossus, whether his metal shield's on or off, he'll still be that imposing figure there. You just have to make sure that you write the role to his abilities. I think it's someone like Dave Bautista, who they cast him as Drax, and you're like, oh man, can this wrestler act? How's this gonna work? And they wrote the part to where his acting abilities were at that time, and it turned out fantastic. I think you can do that with Big Nasty himself. That's what they did for him with Creed 2, and I think it could go really well. But that brings us to our final casting, the most difficult one of the list, Wolverine. For me, casting Wolverine was so difficult, I actually delayed this video for about 5 days. I meant to put this video out last week, but I couldn't decide on who I wanted to be my Wolverine. In my mind, the perfect dream world, everything comes together, dream person and time frame for Wolverine would be Tom Hardy 2011. Before he was Bane, before he was Mad Max, before he was Eddie Brock, and kind of before he was at that A-list. You watch him in the movie Warrior, and he's a little bit on the shorter side for a leading man and kind of a action star. He's on the shorter side, but you watch him in Warrior, and he's so physically intimidating inside of that film that I was like, that's perfect. Of course he has the acting range. Of course he has the leading man ability, all of that fun stuff. But in the 8 years since Warrior came out, he has been cast as Bane, Mad Max, and then Venom, in which case I don't want to see Venom as Wolverine inside his film. So I just don't think he works, but I think he would have been absolutely perfect in 2011. So from there, I actually put out a post on all of my social media asking you for who you think would be good for Wolverine. And I kind of scrolled through lists of hundreds of names that you kind of put out there, or I don't know, hundreds of at least comments, at least a lot of names were repeated inside of there, trying to pick who is best. I'll kind of walk through some of the most common people that people mention and kind of my take on them, and then I'll give you my pick. A lot of people throwing out the name Kit Harington for the Wolverine role. I gotta be honest, I haven't seen enough of Game of Thrones, or at least I haven't watched enough Game of Thrones recently to have a good enough vibe about him to have an opinion. Maybe he'd be a great option. I haven't seen him in enough stuff to know personally. Another common name was Karl Urban, which Karl Urban is another actor that kind of like Tom Hardy. I'm like, oh, I kind of really like that. We got a couple problems here. First off, Karl Urban is in Thor Ragnarok in a pretty prominent role, so that doesn't really work too well. Second, Karl Urban is pushing 50. And you can push 50 for certain types of superheroes, but with a character like Wolverine that doesn't age, you don't want to cast someone that is so close to age 50, and you never know when the aging process is going to hit in on some of these people, and they're just going to start to fall apart. And so it just doesn't seem like you could go with Karl Urban. And of course, he was in Thor 3. There were a lot of recommendations for Keanu Reeves, and there's been a lot of buzz about him over on the internet. And even Kevin Feige said, oh yeah, we think about him all the time for roles inside of the MCU. I don't see it at all. I don't even know what people are talking about when they're like, oh, Keanu Reeves would be perfect. First off, Keanu Reeves is 54. So he's like 5 years older than Hugh Jackman already. And as amazing as he's aged, 54 is not a good age, once again, to start playing a character that doesn't age, that has a healing factor that keeps him youthful forever. So I just don't think that works on any level. He's also really tall for playing a Wolverine, doesn't have the build at all. Like Wolverine in the comics is 5'3" and just like this stocky, muscular beast of a creature. Keanu Reeves is like my height. He's like 6'1", 6'2", and like a lean, athletic build. And he's always had that. He's not at 55, 56 years old suddenly going to be like this big, stocky guy. So he just doesn't even look the part quite right. And just even his acting range, there's like a narrow window of what he does well. So I don't even know. I think people are like, oh yeah, Keanu Reeves is agile. He's not in the MCU. Let's put him in there. I just don't think it works or makes a whole lot of sense, though. Another name that's been thrown out there a lot is Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself. He's definitely on the short side. I just don't see it. I don't see him as imposing. I don't see him as intimidating. I don't see him as the rage monster. And so while he might be short, beyond that, I haven't seen him play a role where I went, oh yeah, that guy is perfect for the guy that has Berserker mode. Final name I've seen thrown out there quite a bit is Taryn Edgerton from Kingsman, from Rocket Man, from Robin Hood. And I thought about this one a good bit. And once again, he's one that I see him as just too kind of smart alecky. I see him as just kind of too much of the guy with the grin on his face, smiling, winking at the camera, that he's so good at doing that. But that's not really who Wolverine is. Just the persona, the energy that Wolverine needs to bring to the screen. I haven't seen that from Taryn Edgerton yet. Now, where there's one thing where this one could get a little bit, it could have been interesting with some of the other names kind of thrown out there, is that if I'd put Jamie Bell as my Cyclops, Jamie Bell played his best friend inside of Rocket Man, so there could have been some of that little bromance, frenemies type thing inside of the team that could have worked really nicely, I think, had we kind of gone with that specific option inside of this. But I just don't see the Berserker Rage Monster when I see Taryn Edgerton. I see the winking guy. But after reading hundreds of your comments, considering who could fit the role best in the year 2019, I think I went with the obvious choice, Danny Devito. Now, maybe he already played the Penguin. Maybe he's a little bit too old for the role. Maybe he's a little bit too bald for the role. And of all the people in Hollywood, he might be the one male actor that is too short to play Wolverine. But I think we would all be very excited if they announced that. I can't do this. So my actual pick, and I gotta be honest, I'm not 100% sold on my pick. I really haven't found the person that I'm in love with besides 2011 Tom Hardy, but I'm gonna go with Scott Eastwood. I'm a big fan of Clint Eastwood, and I think Scott Eastwood has a lot of his father inside of him. He definitely is a little bit of a pretty boy, but there's a gruffness, there's a little bit of a grittiness to the Eastwood pretty boy look about him. He's in pretty good shape right now, but if you kind of told him, hey, you gotta be Wolverine, I think he could get stocky and a lot more muscular pretty quickly based off kind of his track record. He's one of these guys that has shown up in a lot of things, Fast and the Furious, Pacific Rim, Suicide Squad, but he hasn't gotten his thing yet, and I think he's kind of been working through a lot of this different stuff, waiting for that opportunity, and maybe potentially Wolverine is that place where Scott Eastwood finally gets his place, where he can separate himself from being Clint Eastwood's son, and he can be known as Hugh Jackman's follow-up as Wolverine. But I think there's a little bit of potential there. Once again, I'm not 100% sold on it. No one has me 100% sold, unfortunately. It's a tough one. How do you follow up 20 years of Hugh Jackman? That is a tough role to follow up, and so I'm gonna go with Scott Eastwood. I'm confident enough that I could put it inside of this video. If you've got some better selections, tell me down below in the comment section. Go ahead and tell me your whole fan cast down below. If you want to check out my Fantastic Four fan cast, you can see that one right over there. If you want me to do a second round of X-Men fan cast, also tell me that down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.